Deep in the Brazilian Amazon rainforest, there is a fire hydrant. It is rusted, covered in moss, half buried in mud, and it is stamped with the words, "Made in Detroit, Michigan." Surrounding it are the remains of houses, American-style bungalows with front porches and gabled roofs. Except the roofs have collapsed. The walls are overtaken by vines. The jungle has swallowed them whole. If you walk a bit further, you will find a hospital, a sawmill, a water tower, a power plant, all abandoned, all being slowly digested by the forest. This is not a movie set. This is not a post-apocalyptic fantasy. This is Fordlandia, Henry Ford's attempt to build an American utopia in the middle of the Amazon, a city that would prove that American industrial efficiency could conquer nature, culture, and human behavior itself. It failed, spectacularly. And the story of why it failed is not just about rubber trees and mismanagement. It is about what happens when a billionaire decides that money can rewrite the laws of biology, control human culture, and force an entire ecosystem to operate on a factory schedule. By the end of this video, you will understand why Henry Ford spent hundreds of millions of dollars building a city no one wanted to live in, why workers rioted over cafeteria rules instead of wages, and why this bizarre chapter of history is a warning about every corporate dystopia being designed today. Let me take you back to the 1920s. The automobile age is in full swing. Henry Ford has revolutionized manufacturing with the assembly line. The Model T is everywhere, and Ford is not just rich. He is one of the wealthiest men on the planet. He controls every aspect of his supply chain. He owns the steel mills. He owns the coal mines. He owns the railroads that transport materials to his factories. This is vertical integration, the same strategy John D. Rockefeller used to dominate the oil industry. Own every stage of production so you are never at the mercy of a supplier. But there is one thing Ford does not control: rubber. And rubber is essential. Every car needs tires. Every tire needs rubber. And in the 1920s, 97% of the world's rubber comes from a single source: British-controlled plantations in Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Ceylon. The British Empire has a monopoly, and they know it. In 1922, Winston Churchill, serving as British colonial secretary, helps implement the Stevenson Plan, a cartel agreement to restrict rubber supply and drive up prices. Rubber prices double, then triple. Ford is furious. He's paying a fortune for a material he has no control over, and he refuses to be dependent on anyone, especially the British. So he makes a decision. If he cannot buy rubber on his terms, he will grow it himself. And he will do it in the one place on Earth where rubber trees are native, the Amazon rainforest in Brazil. In 1928, Ford purchases 2.5 million acres of land along the Tapajós River in northern Brazil, an area roughly the size of Connecticut. The deal is negotiated with the Brazilian government, which is desperate for foreign investment. Ford pays almost nothing for the land. In exchange, he promises to bring jobs, infrastructure, and American know-how to the jungle. But Ford is not just building a plantation. He is building a civilization, an American civilization, complete with suburban homes, paved streets, schools, hospitals, and a town center that looks like it was airlifted directly from the Midwest. He names it Fordlandia, and he designs it to operate exactly like his factories in Detroit. Orderly, efficient, controlled. Except this is not Detroit. This is the Amazon, and the Amazon does not care about efficiency. From the beginning, Fordlandia operates under a strict set of rules. Rules that have nothing to do with producing rubber and everything to do with social engineering. Because Ford believes that if he can control the environment, he can control the people. And if he can control the people, he can create the perfect worker. The new man, sober, disciplined, obedient, American. Alcohol is banned completely. In a region where local workers are accustomed to drinking cachaça, a Brazilian rum, Ford declares the town dry. Anyone caught drinking is fired on the spot. Women are restricted. Only the wives of workers are allowed in Fordlandia. Single women are prohibited. The town is designed to be a family community, controlled, respectable, moral. Local food is banned. The cafeteria serves American meals, oatmeal, canned peaches, white bread. The workers, who have been eating rice, beans, and fish their entire lives, are now expected to adopt an American diet. Not because it is better, but because it is Ford's way. And then there is the dancing. Henry Ford has a personal obsession with square dancing. He believes it represents wholesome American values, so he mandates that workers attend square dance lessons. In the middle of the Amazon rainforest, Brazilian laborers are being taught to do-si-do by American instructors who do not speak Portuguese. This is not a company town. This is a cultural re-education camp. And it gets worse. Ford imposes a strict 9-to-5 work schedule. In Detroit, this makes sense. Factories operate on shifts. Time clocks regulate production. But in the Amazon, the rhythm of life is dictated by the sun, the rain, and the seasons. The hottest part of the day is midday. The smartest way to work in the tropics is to start early in the morning take a long break during the heat, and resume in the late afternoon. But Ford does not care. He has a system, and the system works in Detroit, so it must work everywhere. The workers are forced to labor through the brutal midday heat. Productivity collapses. Heat exhaustion becomes common. But the schedule does not change, because changing the schedule would mean admitting that Ford's system is not universal. And Ford cannot admit that. The workers endure this for months. They are paid relatively well by local standards, but money is not the issue. The issue is control. The issue is being told what to eat, when to sleep, how to dance, and when to work. The issue is being treated not as human beings with their own culture and rhythms, but as interchangeable parts in a machine. And in December 1930, the machine breaks. It starts in the cafeteria. The workers are served another meal of bland, unfamiliar American food. Someone complains. A manager tells them to eat what they are given or leave. Tensions escalate. Someone throws a plate, then another. Within minutes, the cafeteria erupts into a full-scale riot. Workers smash windows. They overturn tables. They chase the American managers out of the dining hall and into the jungle. The managers flee to the river and hide on a boat, terrified, while the workers rampage through the town. The riot is not about wages. It is not about working conditions in the traditional sense. It is about dignity, about being forced to live in a society designed by someone who has never set foot in the jungle and who does not care about the people living there. It is a revolt against being turned into a caricature of an American worker in a place that is not America. The Brazilian military is called in to restore order. The riot is suppressed. Some workers are arrested. Others are fired. And Fordlandia continues. But the damage is done. Ford's utopia has revealed itself to be a prison. And then the jungle delivers the final blow. Ford's engineers designed Fordlandia like a factory. They planted rubber trees in neat, orderly rows, close together, just like machines on an assembly line. Maximum density, maximum efficiency. This is how you optimize production in a factory. So this is how they optimized a plantation. Except rubber trees are not machines, they are living organisms, and in the wild, rubber trees grow far apart from each other, scattered across the forest, separated by dozens of other species. This spacing is not random. It is a defense mechanism. Because rubber trees are vulnerable to a fungus called Microcyclus ule, commonly known as South American leaf blight. In a natural forest, the fungus cannot spread easily. The trees are too far apart. But in Fordlandia, where every tree is packed tightly together in monoculture rows, the fungus spreads like wildfire. It jumps from tree to tree, leaf to leaf. Within months, entire sections of the plantation are destroyed. The leaves turn brown. They fall off. The trees die. Ford's botanists panic. They try fungicides. They try quarantine. They try replanting in different locations. Nothing works. Because the problem is not the fungus. The problem is the design. Industrial efficiency and biological reality are incompatible. You cannot run a rainforest like an assembly line. Ford refuses to accept this. He pours more money into the project. He brings in more managers. He builds more infrastructure. He tries moving the entire operation to a new site called Belterra, hoping that a different location will solve the problem. It does not. The fungus follows. The trees die again. By 1945, after 17 years and an estimated investment equivalent to over $200 million in today's money, Ford gives up. He sells Fordlandia back to the Brazilian government for a fraction of what he spent. The American workers leave, the Brazilian workers leave, and the jungle reclaims what was always its territory. Henry Ford never visited Fordlandia, not once. He built an entire city, spent a fortune, employed thousands of people, and never saw it with his own eyes. He designed it from an office in Michigan, based on blueprints, reports, and the arrogant assumption that what worked in Detroit would work anywhere. So what is the lesson here? Is this just a historical curiosity? A strange footnote about a rich man's folly? No, because the same impulse that built Fordlandia is alive and well today. It has just changed its name and its tools. Look at Amazon, the company, not the rainforest. Jeff Bezos runs his warehouses with the same philosophy Ford used in the jungle. Workers are tracked by algorithms. Their bathroom breaks are timed. Their productivity is measured down to the second. The system demands efficiency. And if the human cannot keep up with the system, the human is replaced. This is Fordlandia with digital surveillance instead of square dancing. Look at Facebook's metaverse. Mark Zuckerberg wants to build a virtual world where people live, work, and socialize inside a system designed entirely by his company. A place where the rules, the economy, the architecture, and even the physics are controlled by Meta. This is Fordlandia, except instead of the Amazon jungle, it is being built inside a headset. Look at company towns being proposed by tech billionaires in Nevada, Texas, and California. Private cities governed by corporations, where residents sign contracts agreeing to live under corporate rules, where the company controls housing, infrastructure, and even local governance. This is Fordlandia rebranded as innovation. The pitch is always the same. We will build a better society, more efficient, more rational. Free from the chaos and inefficiency of traditional systems, we will design the perfect community. And everyone will be happier because we have removed the friction. But Fordlandia proves what happens when you try to impose a system on people and ecosystems that do not want it. The workers revolted. The jungle rejected the rubber trees, and the entire project collapsed not because of a lack of money or effort, but because the fundamental premise was flawed. You cannot treat people like machines, you cannot treat nature like a factory, and you cannot force complexity into simplicity just because it is more convenient for your spreadsheet. Henry Ford learned this the hard way, or rather, he did not learn it at all. He abandoned the project and moved on. But the ruins remain, a monument to the hubris of believing that money and willpower can override biology, culture, and human nature. The question is whether today's billionaires will learn from his mistake, or whether we are doomed to watch them build their own Fordlandias. Except this time, instead of rotting in a jungle, they will rot in the cloud. Abandoned digital cities, failed metaverses, smart cities that nobody wants to live in, company towns that turn into corporate prisons. The jungle swallowed Fordlandia because the jungle does not negotiate. It does not compromise. It operates by its own rules. And when you try to bend it to your will, it breaks you instead. The same is true for human beings. We are not assembly line components. We are not machines that can be optimized with the right inputs. We are messy, unpredictable, cultural, biological. And when you try to force us into a system that denies those realities, we revolt. Just like the workers in Fordlandia who smashed the cafeteria because they were tired of being told how to eat, dance, and live. So here is the warning. The next time a billionaire announces a grand plan to build a new kind of city, a new kind of society, a new kind of world, remember Fordlandia? Remember the rusted fire hydrant in the jungle? Remember the square dancing lessons in the rainforest? Remember the rubber trees planted in perfect rows that all died together? And ask yourself this, are they building a utopia or are they building a prison? Because history suggests that when someone with that much money and that much control starts redesigning society, the people living in that society are not the beneficiaries. They are the experiment. Henry Ford built a city in the jungle, and the jungle ate it. Today, tech billionaires are building cities in the digital world. The question is not whether they will fail. The question is whether we will be living inside them when they do. Here's what I want you to do. Go to the comments right now. Would you live in a company town where your employer controls your housing, your food, your schedule, and your entertainment? Would you call that a utopia, or would you call it a prison? Write one word, utopia or prison. Let me know what you think. And if this video made you see company towns and corporate control differently, share it with someone who thinks smart cities are the future.